Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. A little bit of shot fraud going on. Let's have some fun. Unfortunately, let's have some fun at somebody else's expense, but let's be horrible people for the moment. Bill and Hillary Clinton haven't been speaking for months after he tossed her hand-wringing election book in the trash. This is the Daily Mail. This is awesome. This is awesome. Yeah, this is awesome. This is awesome. I shouldn't laugh at this. I mean, ultimately, we're talking about two people who are in a relationship with one another, and they've been within a relationship for 40, 50 years. And whatever you want to say about their relationship from a political standpoint, we are talking about human beings. So I would imagine that as human beings, they have emotions in there somewhere, and that whatever that encased in whatever all the political stuff. Bill Clinton told his wife, Hillary Clinton, the inevitable president that wasn't inevitable at all, that his book made her look, what's the word he's looking for? He said her book made her look bewildered, angry, and confused. I'm gonna read this because this is awesome. Daily Mail, the title of it literally is Bill and Hillary Clinton haven't been speaking for months and he tossed her hand-wringing election book in the trash. That's awesome. Bullet points. Bill Clinton told Hillary Clinton's book made her look bewildered, angry, and confused and demanded she rewrite it, friends and family friend says. When she refused to read his notes, he threw her book in the trash, it is claimed. Pair said they're speaking only through friends and lawyers after the argument. They have not been seen together since August when they visited the Hamptons. Oh, when they visited the Hamptons. That's awesome. Look, whatever you want to say about Bill Clinton, Bill Clinton is the guy who said, it depends on what your definition of is. When they were asking him questions, that's one of his famous quotes. It depends on what your definition of is. If nothing else, Bill Clinton was seen as supposed to be the guy with all this political wisdom and everything else. On this one, Bill Clinton was right. I mean, not necessarily like his politics, but on this, from a political standpoint, Bill Clinton is right. He's a shrewd politician in this way. Like even thinking back to the shitty right-wing policies that he took the Democratic Party down. Bill Clinton took a huge amount of money, and he went with this idea that the left has no choice but to fall in line. Otherwise, Republicans are going to get in, and Republicans are going to be worse. So I can do whatever I want in this office. You're going to fall in line, and you're going to vote for me, and you're going to like it. You're going to like it. So yes, he will pass right-wing policies when he gets in office. He will kill, what's the thing called? Glass-Steagall. He will do the criminal reform in regards to the drug laws. Yes, he will do all those things. The left had nowhere else to go. You don't like it. It's a pretty cynical, shitty thing to do. But from a purely political standpoint, if you take nobody else into consideration, it did work. Now, mind you, they lost it all with Gore. For I would make a similar argument that for the same reason that Hillary Clinton lost it against Trump. But I guess the point I'm getting at with this is he's not insane in regards to his political wisdom, his political acumen. He read the book, and Bill Clinton said what every other sane and rational human being that was not Hillary Clinton said. Oh my God, this woman has lost her goddamn mind. She lost an election to reality show hosts. And she's blaming everybody but herself. Now, even if Bill Clinton gave his wife the benefit of the doubt and said, yes, honey, or whatever they say to each other. I don't know what they say to each other. But yes, honey, I agree with everything you said in the book. But you cannot say those things to another person. I'm your husband. I love you. So yes, I accept what you're saying to be true. No, you cannot say that to another person because it's going to make you look fucking insane. Now, that's essentially what Bill Clinton said to her. She did not like that response. She did not like that response. What Bill Clinton said to her was accurate, however. she does look bewildered. She does look insane blaming everybody else. She looks immensely bad writing a book like this. He was right. But, as anybody else is married, being right doesn't necessarily mean that it goes without an argument or goes without a fight. And these two are having a fight. Yeah, let's keep going, because this is slightly comical to me, because Bill Clinton is right on this point. And I don't like Bill Clinton's politics, but Bill Clinton politically is right. This book makes you look immensely bad. You don't lose a campaign and then turn around and blame everybody but yourself. You have a certain perspective, meaning there's a certain perspective of Hillary Clinton. You don't want to fulfill that narrative, and you've just fulfilled that narrative. And Bill Clinton, being a good husband, was trying to tell her that, hey, you don't want to do this. That was not received all that well. Bill and Hillary Clinton are not speaking to each other after a blazing argument over her election book. It has been claimed the former president threw a manuscript in the trash after Hillary ignored the advice not to publish it, according to author Ed Klein. Bill had repenned the book in an attempt to improve it, a friend allegedly told Klein, but flew into a rage when Hillary Clinton refused to read any of his notes. Oh, how dare you not read the president's notes? He was actually the president at one point. You hated the title because calling it "What Happened" would only make people say you lost. He urged her to postpone the publishing date and rewrite the book, but she yelled at him and said, "The book is finished, and this is going to be published. And this is how it's going to be published." Since the pair have been speaking through friends and lawyers, the source said, Ed Klein, All-Out War, a plot to destroy Trump, will be released at the end of October. Oh, he has a book also, too. Okay. The argument is believed to have taken place over the summer before Hillary Clinton took off on tour in order to promote her book. What happened? Bill and Hillary were pictured last together at the end of August while enjoying a visit to see a friend in the Hamptons. Oh, isn't it nice? Even when you're angry with one another, you're still, at the end of the day, rich. It's fucking awesome. The couples have not been seen together since. Hillary has been busy appearing on daytime TV shows and giving speeches across the country as she promotes her book, which has become a bestseller, discounted in Walmart. During the tour, she has blamed women, Russians, former FBI Director Comey, and a host of other reasons for her shocking loss to Donald Trump. She has not only shied away from attacking the now president, describing him as unqualified and even worse than I thought he was going to be. Clinton most recently told Stylist magazine her guilt at losing, saying, "I have a great sense of responsibility for not winning, for letting the people down." Even more so when you consider who my opponent was. If I had run against someone who I disagree with politically but I believe was up to the job, of course I would have been disappointed. But being in a position where I ended up losing to someone who I don't think is qualified or temperamentally ready for the president was a very deep and personal regret. It was a deep and personal regret for Hillary Clinton as she lost the reality show host. I imagine that it was. Bill was previously reported to have blown up at Hillary after the defeat, despite a public show of affection during the concession speech, accusing her of failing to campaign, and the Rust Belt was eventually voted for Trump. Bill Clinton shouldn't be blowing up at anybody. Part and parcel to the reason that Hillary Clinton lost those votes was because of NAFTA. NAFTA. The Rust Belt states. Those jobs. They're calling it Rust Belt because those jobs. They're losing jobs. They're bleeding jobs. Part and parcel to what Bill Clinton did when he was in that office. And also, his wife was towing the same line with the TPP. Bill Clinton can't blow up at anybody. Bill Clinton can't blow up at anybody. Hillary Clinton, whether she wants to admit it or not, to some degree was carrying the legacy of Bill Clinton. Yes, it was the husband. No, they're not the exact same person. But when you hear people talk about Hillary Clinton, oftentimes you hear them talk about Bill Clinton also. Those two are a pair in that sense. The things that Bill Clinton pushed in that office were backed by his wife. Those policies go in tandem. Bill Clinton, my point is, don't have a leg to stand on with blowing up at anybody. He may say you ran a shitty campaign and all this other stuff, but he needs to leave the Rust Belt states out of whatever argument he's going to make. According to Ed Klein, who had written several books on the Clintons, Bill accused Hillary's campaign manager of running a tone-deaf race and ignoring the effect of a flagging economy on having millions of working-class Americans. Yes. Yes. Like I said, man, I don't doubt Bill Clinton's political wisdom in this sense. Don't get me wrong. I just don't like his politics. The triangulation thing and all that other stuff, yes, that was successful in making sure that he himself stayed in office, but he did lose the House and he did lose the Senate. Now, the question becomes, what do you mean by success? If you mean success in the sense of having one Democrat succeed the next because Democrats are just rocking that office, then no, it wasn't a success. If you mean success in the sense of having the economy fall apart because of the policies that you espouse, then no, by that measure, it wasn't a success. If you're calling it success by keeping his ass in office for 2 terms, then yes, I guess he was a success. If you look at the effects of what Bill Clinton started, though, they've lost everything. They've lost everything. I understand Bill Clinton is having this conversation about his wife running a tone-deaf campaign and everything else. What about the other Democrats? They are also running a tone-deaf campaign because those people are losing all across the country, including every level of government in the federal government. Maybe she should have listened to Bill Clinton. The problem is, you were caught giving Wall Street speeches, essentially talking about you wanted open borders, and then having all these people see the shenanigans that's taking place in the Clinton Foundation with regards to pay-for-play politics in the State Department. You were caught with your hand in the cookies, y'all red-handed. If you're giving a speech and you're talking about you're for the working class and all this other stuff, and you're cozying up with Wall Street and you're getting all this money from these guys with all these speeches, certainly you understand that people are going to have a certain perspective of that. That perspective being, you don't have a leg to stand on when it comes to the issues of the economy. You can't have that conversation. The problem is Trump, blue-collar billionaire, took the dialogue from the Democrats on this point. Bill Clinton is right. Bill Clinton is right. Yeah, she should have listened to her husband on this. But like oftentimes, Miss Thomas can attest to this. Wives don't listen to their husbands. They don't listen to their husbands, even when it's sometimes in their best interest to do so. In this case, it would have been in Hillary Clinton's best interest to listen to Bill Clinton when he said, "You are going to look fucking insane if you publish that book." In which case, she published the book anyway. So, let's see. Newsflash: Billy Boy divorced. They're not divorced yet. You say it the very best. Aw, thank you, cheeky rogue. Pat Hacker: August isn't that long. No, it's not that long ago. I mean, it was, what, 2 months ago? It wasn't that long ago. Pat Hacker: you can bet the Clinton Foundation money will be reunited. You know, it's funny. At the end of the day, even if they break up and everything else, at the end of the day, Bill Clinton is still rich. He'll be able to buy himself a house. Bill Clinton would always be provided for. He would always have food in his belly. He would always have a very nice roof to sit under. He may have issues with his wife when he, like other husbands, tell his wife the honest truth, and his wife doesn't like to hear that honest truth. But he'll be okay. He will be okay. Imagine if they wanted to do good for humanity. I know. So here's the thing with politics. I've come to a realization. Arguments are not the thing that actually moves debate. It's not arguments. Argument is part of it, meaning you need to have a core of a message. But spectacle. The point is spectacle. So using politics in the sense of this kind of political spectacle in a way for good ends is an amazing combination, but you oftentimes don't have these things in the same package. You'd have somebody like Obama who has amazing political acumen with zero, a complete empty suit in that case. You'd have somebody like Donald Trump who can say whatever the hell he wants to say, but of course what he's pushing for is fucking ridiculous. It's like you never get that one package for that person with that political acumen that understands this idea of spectacle in politics, but at the same token is doing it for good ends. Just don't see it. Like FDR. It's few and far between. It's few and far between. Nikki Murphy. All she showed us was she was an entitled, who did severe damage to her career, who demanded votes, then attacked half of the base of Republican. Yeah. That's exactly what took place. That's exactly what took place. What's happening, Garneau? Quit giving bankers hand jobs. No, hand jobs would have been better. What she was caught doing was essentially saying she's going to hand over fiscal authority to the bankers, the people who crashed the economy. That's essentially what was taking place. I would have preferred a hand job. Hand job would have been better alternative. It really would have been. Bewildered Billery. I still do not believe she called Trump on election night. No way. Specialty after. You know what? It's wild. If Donald Trump had lost that election and Donald Trump waited another night, like didn't come out on election night to concede, heads would have exploded. Think about what I'm saying. Imagine that scenario. Donald Trump loses. Donald Trump gets beat by whatever measure. And he doesn't call her to concede. And not only does he not call her to concede, it goes into the next day before he gives a concession speech. What would have the consensus been in Washington? What would it have been saying? What would people have been writing and so fervently scribbling how horrible and demonic Trump is for not doing that? How this a horrible, miserable person never came out after he lost to this woman. We have the first woman in the White House, and this guy shits on her. This is misogynistic. All sorts of things would have been thrown at him. Why does Hillary get a pass on that? I mean, come on, man. If you're going to be a feminist, be a feminist. Same rule set. Same rule set means her ass should have been out there on election night saying, I failed Donald Trump as president of the United States. That's all I'm saying. What's fair is fair. She was leveraging her position as Secretary of State for cash. Yes, she was. She was. It is impossible for somebody to read WikiLeaks and come to some conclusion other than taking money in from sources, foreign sources, and then doing favors for those foreign sources. By definition, that's monetizing the State Department. By definition. I continuously ask this question. Do laws just no longer exist? Or do laws only exist for us? Do laws only exist for us? How on earth does this woman skate? You have WikiLeaks publishing detailed information about her taking money into the Clinton Foundation, Chelsea Clinton using money for weddings and all this other stuff. Crimes in the State Department, people in the WikiLeaks document talking about the fact that they were committing crimes. And he gets a pass. How does that get a pass? I don't understand how that gets a pass. I am not one of these people who are thrilled with throwing people in prison. I think we have far too many people in our prisons already. But comfortable power is a terrifying thing. Meaning you have this situation where the people in authority and the people in certain positions no longer are attached to laws. We have kings and queens and nobles. These people go about no fear at all of being apprehended by the legal apparatus. Even when it is exposed that district attorney who was taking bribes, one bribe after the next, being published, will he be prosecuted for taking bribes? Will he be prosecuted? WikiLeaks, the exposure in WikiLeaks, the federal government, whether you realize it or not, when Edward Snowden published that document showing, or published those documents showing that the United States government was spying on everybody, that was illegal. That was illegal. Those people who were torturing, when Bush was torturing torturing people, trying to create a link between 9/11 and Saddam Hussein. Torture is illegal. Invading Iraq was illegal. At which point did laws just stop applying? When did it stop applying? I'm fascinated by this change in American politics. The public looks at this and shrugs. I don't understand why the public shrugs at this. This is a big fucking deal. You have power that's so comfortable and so entrenched that it doesn't necessarily matter what it does. There are no consequences for his actions. Comey went about pretending that he was doing an investigation and wasn't doing squat. Wasn't doing squat. Again, I am not one of those people who are throw the bums away and all this other stuff. But certainly, you understand the problem associated with having people in authority that can do whatever the hell they want. We can receive as much cash as we want. Yes, there's going to be a link between the way we vote and the money that we get, but no changes are going to be made. Nobody's going to be prosecuted. Yes, we can monetize the State Department. Yes, we can monetize the presidency for that matter. Trump monetizing the presidency right now. No consequence. We can bomb whatever nation we want. No consequence. I don't understand how these things continuously go without any consequence whatsoever. And yet, some random person can be walking the street, a cop can kill, arrest, or lock him up for little of anything. Just find it to be amazing. Find it to be absolutely amazing. Garnome, the more entitled they get, the more careless, lazy, and brazen they become. This is kind of my point, though. Right, that's my point. I can't imagine this taking place in the 60s. Like, you think of Richard Nixon being impeached. Republicans were going to impeach Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon stepped down because they had the votes to put his ass away. Can you imagine that happening now? I can't imagine it happening at all. I can't imagine the media covering it. I can't imagine the media being antagonistic in a way that anything would take place with regards to these guys changing. Richard Nixon put in the EPA. He was terrified. You could move some of these people. The question becomes, what changed? At which point did these guys become so fixed in their positions that it didn't necessarily matter what the public wanted and what the public did? And is this just a matter of the public being complacent and the politicians and the people in power knowing that the public is complacent so they can be lazy and brazen, knowing full well that the legal apparatus will never touch them? It's not for them. It's for us. Is that really the country you want to live in? I don't understand why that's okay. That's all. I don't understand why people are complacent about that point. You have 325 million people in this country. 95% of the wealth in this country went to the top 1% during a term of 2 years, 2 terms of a Democratic, supposedly progressive president. I'm just mind blown that people think this is okay. That's all. That's all. It's just fascinating to me. Gardner, we're returning to a period that is more like the 19th century, 20th century politics as opposed to the 60s, for example. I feel you, but Jesus Christ, man, corruption is corruption. Like, this is not a philosophical discussion. This person is committing a crime, and is this person going to be prosecuted for the crime that this person is committing? Yes or no? Do we have laws in this country or not? Yes or no? Are they kings? Yes or no? If that answer is no, then should they be prosecuted for the crimes that they commit? If that was anybody else, they prosecuted Manning. And remember what Manning did. Manning released a video showing the government, a military helicopter gunning down a Reuters reporter, killing the guy. They didn't know who was at the bottom. Most of our drone strikes, we don't know who's at the bottom of those drone strikes. Many of those people are civilians. The majority of those people are civilians. In this case, they hit Reuters reporters. It wasn't the case of saying, hey, maybe we need to figure out what we're doing so we don't murder civilians. It was, hey, you need to stop showing us murdering civilians. And they put her in prison. Put her in prison. It's fucking amazing. Edward Snowden, ironically, had to run to Russia in order to escape persecution from the United States for revealing waste, crime, and abuse. Essentially, the United States government behaving illegally. I'm amazed that this is okay. That's all. I'm amazed that this is okay. Where are the consequences? Where are the consequences? Yeah, I don't want to bitch. It's just fucking amazing to me that this stuff gets a pass. Obama was going after people with espionage laws for whistleblowing. The government was doing something the government has no business doing. Those people revealed that the government was doing something that the government has no business doing. And the president of the United States, who said he was supposed to, backing up whistleblowers, was going after those exact same whistleblowers. Why is this okay? I don't understand why the public is so apathetic. There's this I don't understand why people are, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say robots. I think the word I'm looking for is like complacent. Yeah, complacent. I think everyone, at least I do anyway, I assume it's for everyone else, as they go about their day, they have this thing of the other. You know, this other, the conception of the other, this external idea in your head of what society is like. I know me, and then aspect of me is this conception of what's out there. Who are those people, and how do I relate to the wider society as a whole? This kind of other that hangs over your shoulder as you go about your day. To some degree, I think you're always measuring yourself with some ideal of yourself. You have this, what is the ideal scenario in this situation, and how do I measure up with this ideal? Am I greater or lesser than the ideal that I'm going after? This ideal doesn't really exist, but this ideal we create. That creation is purely our own. I'm trying to make this point that whatever that thing is in your head of this is the society or this is the existence I'm willing to accept, that is of your own making. That can be whatever you want it to be. That's my point. That's what I'm getting at. You can have whatever arrangement of society you want, providing you're willing to deal with the consequences. This is a terrifying arrangement of society. These guys have become so craven that's just in the open. It's like nobody's going to do anything about it. The public is beaten down with debt. They have to work these jobs, working 40, 50 hours a week. Ultimately, they don't necessarily have the time to do anything other than work the job and eat their Cheerios and go about their movies and have their distractions and everything else to convince them that life is better than what it actually is. That conception could be different. That conception should be different. What is the conception of an individual who lives in Europe, for example? If you lived in Germany, this idea that, you know, college and education or healthcare, they're given. Whatever problems that may assail you through the course of your life, having a major bill in healthcare and having a $50,000 loan over your head is not one of them. What about if you live in Switzerland? What about Sweden? What is their conception of themselves? What would take place if in Sweden they said they were going to allow $50,000 to be put on the heads of their kids? It's better. That's what I'm getting at. How you view yourself in some degree is what you aggregate around in your society. If you that can change. That should change. That should change. So I'm bitching about it. It's just oh, I'm losing signal. Come on. There we are. I'm back. Yeah, I'm bitching. The public is caught in what is referred to as a behavior sink. Come on. I don't know if you guys are still seeing me. The stream is cutting out. Yeah. I'm hoping he comes back. Let's see. Am I back? Good. Yeah. I had to restart. Yeah, I'm bitching. I just want life to be different. That's all. It is not down again. That's all. Stop ticking around, Garden. It's up. Yeah, I'm bitching. I don't want to bitch too much about it. I just wish. I wish people can see themselves with the potential that I see themselves with. That's all. That's all. It's like, yeah, man. That's all. Next little dog. Always blaming something or someone else. The public is caught in what is referred to as a behavior sink. It's Carnot. She's a sociopath. Well, you probably can say that for most politicians. Diesel D's. A wise man once advised another man on marital scuffles. You could be right or you could be happy. Oh man. You can understand the quagmire when being right is being happy. That's a paradox. It's a paradox. Yeah. I'm reading some of the comments. He says, marital scuffles, you can be right or you can be happy. And it's like, what does it mean when being happy, or in order to be happy, you need to be right? In which case, you're just in perpetual conflict. Yeah, man. So, Bill Clinton loses it, flips out. Hillary Clinton flips out. She wrote a book called What Happened. Bill Clinton gave her very good political advice that she completely ignored. And they are having a marital scuffle. So, that's a summary of events. Try Panzo. Maybe Bill is making a play for the HRC network. I have no idea. I have no clue. I just look. We have our. I'm joking them. Don't get me wrong. I'm joking them. But always within my joking of them, I look at this as a systems issue. You would always have a Bill Clinton. You would always get a Hillary Clinton. This is somewhat of the natural evolution of the environment that you're in. You can't expect integrity from people in situations where integrity is not necessarily a virtue for them. And yes, I'm saying virtue from the perspective of them. Virtue, it's like anything else. It's relative. In their case, if you're getting $1 billion to run an election, it's not necessarily a virtue to be a lefty. It's just not. Like, what they need to do to get elected, the cash they need to take to get elected, allows for certain slant to things. Media is also controlled by that particular revenue source, which means you're also going to get a certain slant to things. There's a certain perspective with regards to mainstream. Now, the question becomes, as people stop watching television and start watching more internet and stuff like that, their sources begin to diversify. What does that mean for media, and what does that mean for cultivation of perspectives? No clue what that means yet. No clue. U.S. citizens are increasingly becoming beautiful ones, self-obsessed and easily distracted. But you can understand why. I mean, think of it this way. Your distraction, in some cases, perpetuates shitty scenarios. So, if you knew that you would have to work a crummy job for 50 hours that week, but you can come home and you can play your Xbox and you can kind of escape into that particular world with people and interactions and everything else, and you play your video games, you go to see your movies, and you do your job, and you just rinse and repeat, and you do that in perpetuity. The distraction itself, meaning your goal isn't to create a life that's just a beautiful life. At that point, your goal is the distraction, because your distraction essentially keeps you away from the crumminess of the labor. Human beings, we're you can understand why people in the United States are this kind of self-obsessed, image over substance, cash, and everything else. It breeds. The society breeds itself. It's not one of those things. It's not like those people are coming out of a vacuum. The question becomes, what choices do you believe those people need to make to not be that way? And do you have a society that nurtures people in being self-obsessed, individualistic, screw the wider society, etc., etc.? I'll make the point, your society breeds that. That's not necessarily something that automatically comes out of a vacuum. Which, if I'm right, then they're to some degree victims. Now, you can feel bad for them, they're problematic, but understand that that's a virtue of your society. That's not necessarily them coming out of willy-nilly just being that way. Beautiful ones is a term that comes from behavior experiments with rats. I did not know that. But they can gain power by throwing each other under the bus periodically. Yes, that's true also. That's true also. She's still brown man though, which implies she expects some loyalty between them. You know, that part I do believe. I do believe she have this in everything that I've known of Hillary Clinton in regards to reading, articles or journals or whatever. Loyalty is big. Loyalty is very big. Like, when you think of them shafting Nina Turner, part of the reason why Hillary Clinton shafted Nina Turner at the speech was because she felt like she was being disloyal. She assumed that it was her turn. When Obama ran, I stood down for, I stood up for Obama. I told my voters to vote for Obama. I did all that stuff like a good soldier. He put me in Secretary of State. I full well expect the rest of the Democratic Party to go my way. That's where I think all this came from. The reason why I think she's so angry at Sanders is because from her standpoint, he wasn't a Democrat, because if he was a Democrat, he wouldn't have gotten in the race. He just wanted to disrupt. Yes, he wanted to disrupt because he didn't give a shit about your party. The goal of politics is not politics. Understand what I'm saying? The goal of politics is not politics. Politics is a means to an end. The goal is to get shit accomplished. Actual substantive things accomplished. Not whatever you were doing. You were going into this thing as if, people were supposed to support you just because they were supposed to support you. It's not the point of politics. This country doesn't exist for your whims. It's not for you guys to jockey and determine whose go is it to be president. It doesn't work that way. Failed on your own merits. Own it. I saw that, Garno. There are stories of her throwing tantrums during the election night. I've heard about it. I don't know if it's true. Yeah, I've heard about it, but I don't know if it's true. People want to take shots at, the Clintons, so it's hard to know sometimes. I can believe this, though. I can believe it only from the standpoint of it was me, and my wife had just lost a reality show host, and I had to get in the car with her to drive home. Shit, man. Can you imagine? Can you imagine having to get in the car with that woman after she lost the election? Oh, man. Can you imagine having to be in the same room, the same house? Can you imagine being Bill Clinton? It's election night. And they haven't called Virginia. And you're finding weakness in one state after the next. And you find out she lost Wisconsin. And final indignity of losing Pennsylvania. Do you, as Bill Clinton, loving husband, go and comfort your wife? I love my wife, but I think this would be a time where she needs to be by herself. I would not be. Fuck that. That's a horrible scenario, man. Maybe if it was a different person, yes. Oh, God, man. That's a horrible scenario. That is a horrible scenario. Agree, Jamal. Loyalty is the lifeblood of a narcissist. Yeah, it depends. Come on, let's be honest. Let's be fair. It does depend. I mean, all of these things are go along a certain spectrum. If we're in the same party, say it's some kind of leftist party, and you're towing a particular line, and we're voting a particular way, I mean, like, loyalty does come into play. Like, I don't think you can be this kind of Jesus Christ. There it is. Yeah, loyalty does come into play in politics. It's just, I guess it's the degree of loyalty. Let me put it this way. Let me say it this way. In most situations, you have competing interests. Meaning the interest of Hillary Clinton is not necessarily the interest of me or the interest of you. I understand her concept of loyalty. Fair enough. Has nothing to do with me. Her loyalty is to her party. I have nothing to do with that. I want a better country. I want certain people in those positions that are going to do good, radical things. Meaning, fuck her loyalty. That's her issue. That's not my issue. Those are not my concerns. Those are concerns that she has to deal with in her party and all this other stuff. I don't care about her loyalty. I understand her loyalty. I understand where she's coming from with this idea of loyalty. I may even agree from the context if I was in her context. I'm not in her context. She has shown poor emotional control in the past, but you're right. Who knows? We know she didn't come out to give a speech. She should have came out and gave that speech. I still believe that. Like you've heard me say before, I felt bad for her on that night, man. On that night, I did feel bad for her. And this is maybe me being in this weird way of being somewhat sexist. If it was Mitt Romney, I wouldn't have felt bad for Mitt Romney at all. Like, I enjoyed Obama taking shots at Mitt Romney during the debate. I loved it. I got a thrill out of it. It warmed my heart to see Mitt Romney taking shots to the face in that way. I didn't have a dog in this hunt, though. Like, so this wasn't one of those things where I'm sitting there for election night, like wanting one person to win or the other. I didn't have a dog in the hunt. But yeah, maybe I'm being slightly sexist on this. As a human being, I consider her to be a woman. And as a man, there's something in me that is empathetic towards what I consider to be a certain amount of femininity. And yes, this has gone extraordinarily weird in regards to the conversation. But I'm trying to parse this. I'm trying to parse what I was feeling in that moment. And if I'm being brutally honest, I think that's where it came from. It's this aspect of, as a guy, I acknowledge that she's a woman, and she just got the stuffing beat out of her by a reality show host, a white nationalist reality show host. Everybody expected her to win. I'm pretty sure she herself expected to win. And I myself have been in situations where I thought I was going to win something, and I failed miserably at it. If she was a guy, I don't know if I would have felt that way. So I have to take it as a certain level of her being a woman, to disagree, me being somewhat sexist. Yeah, I think that's where it came from. If that was Mitt Romney, if that was any other guy, I don't think I would have cared. Either way, she still should have came out and gave that speech. That would have been a ballsy, badass thing to do. Yeah, she should have came out and gave a speech. I'm not being kinky. D. Martin, you're kinky, Jamal. I'm not being kinky. I'm trying to parse what I was thinking or what I was feeling. Because Gardner has joked me in the past for saying I felt bad for her. He was like, don't feel bad for her ass. She's a horrible person. And so I'm trying to understand what it is in me and why. And why in one situation I didn't feel that way at all. But in another situation, there was some aspect of me that, if, you know, some dark corner of me that felt a particular way. It just is what it is. Natural empathy rather than sexism, in my honest opinion. But if it was a guy, would I have felt that way? That's what I'm getting at. There is no guy who I would have felt like, oh, I feel bad for the person because they lost to a reality show host. I can't see it. Like, I don't think it would have been there. If Obama would have lost, I would have felt a particular way. It wouldn't have felt that way. The loss would have felt more like, you know, this kind of warmonger has won. I would have been, you know, more annoyed than anything else. There wouldn't have been this feel bad for the person. Like, I actually felt bad. So I'm guessing Obama is rolling his eyes at Hillary Clinton's book. Did she blame him? I haven't read her book. I wouldn't be surprised if she also blamed Obama. He didn't sufficiently protect me from Russia. He didn't sufficiently get the black vote on my side. He didn't sufficiently do one thing or the other. Who knows? That woman blames. She should have listened to Bill Clinton. Jamal spends his Patreon and most of his paycheck on a nylon rumored to have once belonged to Hillary. Oh, no, dude. Nah, man. No, dude. Let's not go there. Let's not go there. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no. No, not so much. Not so much. Depends on your connection to the guy. Natural empathy toward rather than sexism depends on your connection to the guy. She is totally reckless. Jan Manslet. D Martin, LOL. Yeah, LOL was right. Depends on your connection to the guy. Yeah, maybe. Creepy. Did you also feel bad when the Borg Queen was defeated? No, I didn't. I did not. Did I? No, I didn't. I mean, she was a fucking murderer. Like, the Borg Queen killed a lot of a lot of races. So no, I did not. I did not. I haven't did a Star Trek video in a while. I found this guy who does Star Trek history, like the historical context of some of the stuff that takes place in the Federation. His shows are actually interesting. Now, the funny part is, I'm watching some of the shows. I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that. I think I might want to make a rebuttal video. You can't make a rebuttal video in politics going into the Star Trek thing. But no, I didn't feel bad when the Borg Queen was defeated. She needed to be defeated. Otherwise, Earth would have been assimilated. And I live here. Just because we're fucking up the planet doesn't mean I necessarily wanted to assimilate it. She came, she saw, and giggled when he died. Oh, yeah, that was gross. Gerald Cruz Molina. Yeah, that was the Gaddafi line. That was gross, man. That was gross. I've never seen Hillary Clinton. That was the only time I've ever seen Hillary Clinton have an actual honest emotion of glee. And unfortunately, it was the death and sodomized with a knife of Omar Gaddafi. It's fucking amazing. They turned that country into a fire pit. Okay, so yeah, I get your point. I shouldn't feel bad. That's your point, I guess. I shouldn't feel bad. Discovery is good. Gardner, Discovery is good. So it's a little weird because it follows one person as opposed to the entire crew. But the Federation is embroiled into a war with the Klingons, and so that show has a bit of edge. Has a bit of edge. The Federation is not this kind of just The Discovery craft itself was supposed to be a science vessel, but it's been converted to a military vessel, and they're doing whatever the hell that they need to do to win that war. So it's interesting. It's especially gross when you look deeper into the Libya story. Yes, it is. It really is. They made it up. They made it up. This idea that Gaddafi was going to murder all these people, and so they had to do these air raids and everything else. The stories, there were conflicting stories on that, showing that that wasn't necessarily the case at all. Gaddafi had a ton of gold, if I'm not mistaken. It's something dealing with gold with Gaddafi also, but they essentially had air raids, destroyed his compound, all those people rushed in, essentially took him out and sodomized him with a knife. The country itself has essentially descended into utter chaos with gangs and whatnot murdering civilians left and right. We attacked the country. We attacked the country. We destroyed a country. Hillary Clinton was the prime mover in that country. Obama didn't necessarily want to do it. He was pushed into it by Hillary Clinton. They had no strategy at all to deal with the fire that was going to take place after they left that country. They didn't give a shit about it. They destroyed that country. All of those people that have died, all those people that are getting killed, and all those people living in those shitty situations as a result of what took place in those air raids are on the heads of Hillary Clinton. No, I don't feel bad for her for losing that election. She should have lost that election. You're making me spiteful. Yeah, you're making me spiteful. You're making me real spiteful. Like Syria. Yeah, undermining the Syrian government is another one. The wild part about it is, in the WikiLeaks documents, one of the things came out showing that Hillary Clinton was saying how Saudi Arabia was a state sponsor of terror and they were exporting terrorism throughout the region. And then, in no way did it stop her from taking money from those same sources that were supposed to be state sponsors of terror. And in no way did it stop her from selling them weapons to the same sources who were state sponsors of terror, who turned around and used those weapons to murder and starve the Yemenis. Shit's gross. It's immensely gross. Yes, and warned of consequent refugee flood into the EU. Yeah, for Syria. You know, that's the, you know, I don't understand why the EU doesn't take a more strident approach with the United States. With all these refugees that are streaming into Europe, to some degree, is from the things that we were doing in the Middle East. They're taking the hit for things that we ourselves are doing. Destroying Iraq, for one, having all those people flood from Iraq, these generals and everything else, into other regions. But involving ourselves into the Syrian conflict in the first place. Essentially allowing this low bubbling war where there's a parity of sides. The United States is supporting one side, the Syrian government is pushing against the other, and you have this slow bubbling war that just goes on and on and on and on. No side wanting to commit to enough resources. The United States not necessarily want to commit enough resources to actually win it, because we didn't necessarily want to get embroiled into a civil war, but at the same token involving ourselves in it nonetheless in regards to these proxies. It's none of our business. Why are we in Syria? I mean, I find this to be amazing. Why are we in these countries? We're in 70% of the world. You understand me? 70% of the world has United States forces in it. 70% of the world. If Hillary Clinton would have taken that office, she was going to put a missile defense shield in Syria. She wasn't welcome there. She was just going to do it. If she would have shot down a Syrian or Russian jet, we would be in a military conflict with a nuclear power nation. The election was a Hobbes choice. There was a no-win scenario. The question became, who was the least worst and who was going to kill the least amount of people? I don't know the answer to that question yet. Now Libya is hosting open slave markets. Yes, Cardinal. Yeah. Rob Illinois. I'm beyond glad that the vag of the left over organic material governed by the unfortunate laws of physics. Laws. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Tomoso Young. Us use the big bully. Try reasoning with a bully. Yeah. United States is a big bully. Yeah. Yeah. The one thing with Donald Trump is you get an honest representation of the United States. That's the one thing. You don't have these, public relations people who can suave and debonair and croons and all this other stuff. You have a horrible, disgusting goblin that's the face of America. And that was essentially who you had before, who was just a little bit nicer in the way they would say things. But ultimately, you had the same ends. So. Alright, guys. It is almost an hour. I kind of just was going to get on to do a show for a little bit, but everybody showed, or a bunch of people showed up, so hell, I had a good time talking. Garneau, Trump could never order such a strike. U.S. military would prevent it. Hillary Clinton, however, could because of her pull in the State Department and other spheres. Trump does not have that. If Trump orders a strike, are you telling me that the military is going to turn down the president of the United States? Look, I think people are robots in general. For whatever reason, and then for the life of me, I don't quite understand. They believe that a life is well lived by working somewhere 50 hours a week to make somebody else a lot of money. That's fucking insane. That's not a life. That's essentially a life of slavery where you're choosing the plantation that you work. But how can I say this? But they take on roles, and in taking on the roles, they fulfill the obligation of those roles to a degree that's insane and ridiculous to me. Like what was going on in Spain, in Catalonia. The Spanish government would send down thugs and brutes, called cops, to beat the shit out of protesters. They weren't even protesting, they were actually just going to vote. Now, if you're a cop, and your government has told you to do something, and you believe it's perfectly okay to take your fist, to take your billy club, to take your weapon, and assault another human being for having the temerity to make a vote, something is wrong with you. Something is wrong with you. Many of these guys who are in the military do things that are atrocious and disgusting And they think because their government tells them to do it that it's perfectly okay to do it. I'm sorry, it's not. It's not. What did they tell you? What did you believe that made murder okay abroad? It's not even a situation where we have barbarians at our gates. You're in other countries killing other people. You're telling me that these same people who are perfectly okay with doing drone strikes to murder civilians, who are perfectly okay with sending special forces in to kill this person or that person, or kick up this particular damage or that damage, or undermine one government after the next, that those people would turn down a reality show whose CBX for a strike. I'm skeptical. I think those people are robots. I think they're robots. Tomoso Young, isn't it like California trying to break away from the union? Too much money, economy at stake. The terrorists, Jamal. Terrorists or revolutionary? Which one you want? Is there a difference in those things? I guess the difference is purely an issue of perspective, right? Your government is an artificial edifice. It's not a real thing. It's a thing of conception of sorts. It gets tax dollars and money and everything else, and so it has a certain amount of authority to do those things, but that authority is conferred to the people themselves. The people themselves is what imbue government with the powers that that government has. An organization or entity, just because that entity has persisted for a period of time, that does not give it legitimacy. Meaning, just because you have something that's been there for X amount of hundreds of years doesn't necessarily make that thing legitimate. If it's doing something that's undermining its original premise, if it's doing something that is completely untethered itself from the public itself, the public that is supposed to get its powers from, then yes, that artificial edifice can be undermined and reworked. It's not given by God. It's given by man, and as such it can be undone. Now, that would be considered a terrorist act, or it would be considered a revolutionary act. Just depends on the perspective. Depends on the perspective. I'm being facetious. I know you are. The terrorists has been the land we've been fed for 20 years. Now we're back to Russian. Yeah. It's always some threat. But understand, that's not just abroad. That's also here in the United States. Think about, hey, we're gonna get you jobs. We're gonna get you jobs. They're gonna lose you jobs. Why do you think they're saying jobs? Jobs is just a buzzword. It doesn't mean anything. Ultimately, what they're trying to hit on is this thing of security, security, security. We're working for your security. We're working for your security. They're not. They're not. The buzzwords are used as a way of hitting at this thing of your own vulnerabilities. Whether you're talking about external, whether you're talking about at home, fear is the thing, is the principal thing that's used in elections. Same thing abroad, in Britain, when they were talking about Jeremy Corbyn. The argument that the Blairites used was, he's going to wreck the economy, he's going to wreck the economy, it's going to be sad old Britain, etc., etc. They made it like, oh, this guy has no chance of winning, this guy is a radical, this guy is out there, and all this other stuff. It was a playbook, it was a strategy. They were trying to make it look like, you know, this guy shouldn't even be here. With the idea that the public would be stupid enough to say, hey, if they believe that this guy shouldn't be here, maybe the guy shouldn't be there. It didn't work. It didn't work. It did not work at all. Yeah, the problem is the mushroom cloud is of our own making. We're creating our own monsters. That's the problem. Like, think about the scenario of, think about our foreign policy. Like, honestly, you're talking about bombing other nations, many of which are civilians, and then shock the shit when those civilians are mad and angry and are screaming stuff like death to America. Now, America says those guys are terrorists. I'd argue that they will probably consider themselves freedom fighters, as you've been murdering their relatives and their family and friends. I don't understand why Americans don't get that. Honestly, man, I don't understand why they don't get that. I fundamentally miss why they're okay with the way things are. It's not a scenario as if we're not unaware of what takes place on around in other parts of the country, whether in Europe or anywhere else. I don't understand why they accept their station. It's like they're happy to be exploited. Some of this I know is fear. Some of this is, well, this is the best I can do. Some of this is just being propagandized to. Some of this is buying into this kind of cultural myth that working 40 hours a week is somehow good and better for you and all this other stuff. It's like, hey, working a 40-hour, 50-hour a week job and spending all your time at work making somebody else rich is the American dream. The stuff is propaganda. It's just stuff that the culture has told itself. I don't understand why the public doesn't see it. That's all. That's all. Alright guys, I'm going to call this a night. I can hear the missus outside rummaging about. Jamal, I meant that bag of leftover organic material governed by the unfortunate laws of physics, lost in reality shows. A bag of organic matter. There's a Star Trek episode where one of the crew is interacting with something, some substance, and the substance has a capacity to talk, and it's looking at human beings as like you know, you bags of water, which is, yeah, with 70% water. But that's their perspective of us. Their perspective of us was like, we're, you know, not all that real. So, all right, guys, you all have a good night. Thank you for the conversation. I know that we always wind around to all sorts of stuff. I try to take user comments and commentary as we're doing it. It's kind of just a formal talk. I think what I should start doing is just opening up the phone lines. Yeah, I need to figure out how to do that. Alright guys, if you enjoy the content, feel free to share, write, subscribe, and of course, you can always support through Patreon. Thanks guys.